And welcome back to another episode of the Freeze Dried Guys, the podcast where science meets small business in the world of freeze drying. I'm Mykal Taylor, and I'm joined as always by my co-host and fellow freeze drying expert, Colt Crisp. Together, we break down the technology, talk with the pros, and bring you the unfiltered truth about the machines, the method, and the industry behind it all. And this episode is brought to you by our friends at Upside Down Event Tents, LLC, your go-to source for custom branded event tents, Mylar bags, and premium product packaging with free design services, fast shipping, and a team that truly cares about your business. Check them out at www.upsidedowntents.com. Welcome back to another episode of the Freeze Dried Guys, the podcast where we explore the science, strategies, and stories behind the world of freeze drying. I'm Mykal Taylor.
I'm Colt Crisp, and together we bring the unfiltered truth about the machines, methods, and makers shaping the freeze-dried food industry.
You know, today's guest is someone we're really excited to speak with. Eric Morgan, the president of Thrive Life.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks, Mykal. Thanks, Colt, for having me on today. I've been with Thrive Life. Thrive's been around for a couple of decades now, and I've been there about 15 years. Great company. I'm excited to talk to you guys about freeze dry.
If you spend any time looking into premium freeze-dried food, chances are you've heard of Thrive Life. They've built a strong reputation for their high-quality ingredients and innovative approach to shelf-stable meals.
We're going to dive into how Thrive Life got started, what drives their company culture, how they ensure top-tier quality at scale, and where they see the industry heading. Eric, thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. Eric, let's begin with the big picture. What inspired the company's focus on freeze-dried foods specifically?
Well, this is kind of a funny story, funny background. So we've got Jason Budge and Steve Palmer. They were the founders of the company, and they started a company actually called Shelf Reliance. This was, maybe you've seen this, but they have the shelves that rotate. So you put the big gallon-sized cans, the number 10 cans in, and they'll rotate through. Mm-hmm. So it's first in, first out. Great little system that they created. That's where they started. And not too long into this process, they had customers saying, this is awesome. Where do I buy the food? Where do I buy the food? Where do I buy the food? So after several questions of that, they decided, well, this is a quality product. They're like quality people. This is a quality product. We don't necessarily want to just send them out to find whatever food. We wanted to point them in the right direction of quality food. So they actually decided then, let's do our own food, and we'll call it Thrive Life or Thrive Food, and that's where they started. They started researching what freeze dried food was the best, what companies were the best. They'd purchase and package and sell, and that's how we got started. We purchased freeze dried food, we packaged it ourselves, and sold it under the Thrive label. That's how we started.
Awesome. Kind of almost like a white label kind of start. Perfect.
Yeah. First few years were that way. Yeah.
Very cool.
Can you talk about any core values or philosophies that guide your brand and product decisions at Thrive Life?
Yeah, Colt, I think, there are a handful of values that we really live by at Thrive. The one that is maybe the key, especially in the startup, was quality. It is quality product, but quality systems, quality people, and Steve and Jason, again, the founders, they just instilled that in all of us, and that really did create a foundation for development, for hiring, for product innovation. All of those things were kind of based in quality, and that's really been the key for our success, I believe.
Can you share a memorable success story or milestone in the company's history that really stands out to you?
Yeah, I think all companies have ups and downs, and we certainly have had our share of ups and downs. There was one key key time for us when we were kind of in the down zone, if you know what I mean. And we decided, this was Steve Palmer actually. He decided we keep kind of going from company to company or supplier to supplier based on quality. And at some point, this was probably, 15 years ago at this point, 13 years ago, where Steve said, I'm tired of being the middle guy. I want to own a freeze dryer. I want to freeze dry my own stuff. So we decided, big pivotal moment for us. We decided to be the freeze dryer, the freeze dry manufacturer instead of white labeling. And so we didn't know what we were doing, but we dove in and we tried to figure this out. We hired what we felt like were the right people, and year after year we got better and better. And that honestly was just a pivotal moment for us to become the manufacturer, to kind of cut out, not be the middleman.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're essentially doubling your margins there, by cutting out, the middleman and doing it yourself. So yeah, it's also risky, very risky, and so it was a very big, obviously a good return on your risky investment. Absolutely. But a great decision, honestly. Very cool.
Oh, I was just going to say it has been a really good decision for us, luckily, because it was a huge risk, and especially because we didn't know what we were doing. But the other thing, you mentioned margins, that's been awesome. But the other thing is just allowed us to control way more of that whole quality process. And we kind of realized it before, but we understand way more now that we have a much better handle on quality start to finish.
That's what I was going to say, is being able to control your quality is probably one of the major keys in doing it yourself. And it's just, that's the only way to do it.
Absolutely. Again, we kind of knew that going into it, but when we dove into exactly what has to happen in all these processes, that's when we realized, oh man, we didn't really control the quality like we thought we did. And now we have access to all of those key points in making sure that the quality is where we want it to be.
Absolutely. With quality attached to your brand name, it's pivotal that it has to be at the absolute tip of the spear for every business. So very, very cool.
What makes your freeze drying process unique compared to others in the industry?
That's a good segue, actually, because when we did try to figure this out, it took us a few years to figure this out. We're still figuring it out, to be honest. As you know, the process, it's so innovative and there's so much change. So we're still figuring it out. But we learned pretty early on that there were key points in the process from the very start to the very finish that we could control. And so we knew our competitors pretty well and knew some of those processes, but we decided within the first couple years of owning our first two big freeze dryers, now we have over 100 at this point.
Wow.
But those first two, we were like, okay, we want to control the process from A to Z, and so we created a process. It's an internal certification. It's called the Neutralock certification. It may not mean anything to anyone else, but internally we know it's over 40 steps of hitting all of these things. If we don't hit number 32, then we don't certify it. Doesn't mean we throw it away, but it means it's not Neutralock certified. So we can sell it to a competitor, or we can do something else with it. But if it's Neutralock certified and we have that on our little labels, then we know that it's gone through all the 40 plus steps. And that's how we identify ourselves as this is how we're that we are the top quality from how we define it.
Critiquing your own quality standards is, allows you to control the outcome of the end product to the consumer and having that, top of the line standard, allows your brand to shine over any of the competitors. And like you said, it doesn't mean that you just throw away anything that doesn't, match that. That's a great opportunity to, have that for, say, a white label side or
Yep.
pet food or something else, even cereal or something like that, where they're using the freeze-dried elements if it's like a fruit or something. But yeah, that's very, very cool.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly right, Michael. In fact, maybe I'll just give you a specific example because that, as I talked, that kind of felt general, but specifically, this happened just a few weeks ago. We had a new line that was coming out, not new product, but just kind of a new introduction to some product, and we got all the way through the process of packaging. It even got to packaging,
Hmm.
and our internal team, our internal QA, they came and tested the product and said, this doesn't meet our standards. Something happened in the process between freeze dry and packaging,
Hmm.
and the product became softer than we want it to be. But we weren't going to sell it, not under the Neutralock certification. So we turned around and sold that to others that wanted it, but it doesn't have the Thrive Life label on it. That's an example of where we can control, is it Neutralock certified? If yes, great.
As a large scale producer, what challenges do you face in maintaining consistent quality across such high volumes? You
Oh
said
man.
you have 100 freeze dryers now.
Yeah.
That's got to be just a massive QC environment there to be able to make sure that everything is consistent and conforms to those certification standards that you have.
Honestly, that is likely one of the hardest things that we deal with right now. It's probably our top three, and we're getting a lot better at that. I'll give you just a little background on why it's so difficult. I think it was 6 freeze dryers here in Utah. We're based in American Fork, Utah. Then we went and acquired a company in California that had I think they had 25, tripled our output.
Hmm.
Then we went and acquired a couple of companies in Germany. We have freeze dryers in Asia, and so within just a few years, we went from 6 freeze dryers to over 100, and
Wow.
so quality almost went out the window. I mean,
Yeah.
I should say it that way, but it was we were frantically trying to figure this out because
Mhm.
we just again, I'll say we didn't know what we were doing. Well, we kind of didn't know what we were doing when we got into this idea of acquiring a few companies. We thought, well, we all have different standards, but we're all at least in the same boat, right?
Hmm.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
So it took us a little while to figure out what all the standards were between facilities and even between freeze dryers. We had to take, honestly, it was a couple of years before we could say, okay, this facility is now Neutralock certified and we can produce in that facility. We'd continue to produce for other clients in those facilities,
Hmm.
but as far as the Thrive Life label, it had to be Neutralock certified before. And we actually still have facilities that are not Neutralock certified.
Hmm.
So that question, Michael, it's a painful one
Yeah.
to get everyone on board with quality from A to Z, all 40 plus steps. That's been hard. It's been I say top three pain point. That might be the top pain point for the
Yeah.
last few years, but we're
Yeah.
getting there. We're getting
Good.
there.
Good. Yeah, I know. I assume when you were acquiring those other companies too, that you're acquiring different brands of freeze dryers. And so not only did you have to learn your equipment, but you also had to learn a competitor that you bought out's equipment and, be able to, because consistency is completely different between machines, I found. And so to be able
Absolutely.
yeah, to be able to find that like you said, you know this equipment we got down, we're going to certify this equipment, it runs great, but it just doesn't meet our quality control standards. So now, I mean, there's still a business element to that,
Yep.
But yeah, that's amazing. I know this is off some of the questions that we've
Sure.
asked. What brands of equipment do you have, or did you build your own, so to speak?
Good question. So that the specifics I'd need to refer to some of the operations guys because I don't get my mind is doesn't think that way.
Uh,
But some of the companies, the main company that we work with, the brand is GEA from Denmark.
okay,
They've been awesome.
good.
We've worked with them quite a bit, and then since then we've started doing our own building with some of their engineering.
Hmm.
But these companies that we've acquired, I don't know what brands that they use, but not Gia and not our own. So we've had to go in and like you were saying, Michael, there's we kind of went into it thinking the standards would be different for sure, but around here,
We're kind of close.
and the reality,
No, they're way over here. Yeah, it's just how it is.
we're just naive going into it. But yeah, we've learned a lot since then that dryers can be all over the place.
How do you handle food safety and regulatory compliance at Thrive Life? That's a huge piece of trust for your customer base.
So we have an internal QA team, and they are nasty. I hope they're not watching this, but they feel like they own the brand more than we do. It hurts us because we'll go face to face sometimes, toe to toe on, but we need to sell this, and they're saying, but look, item number 28. Internally, I feel like we have a great team. However, we don't rely just on internal. We have a few different third party auditors that come in. The biggest one that I'll talk about is SQFs, Safe Quality Food. And when they do show up unannounced, of course, as third party do, they come unannounced. Everyone in the building just goes, oh, yeah, not today.
Like when OSHA shows up.
But they come and they go through and SQF, if you guys probably know, but if listeners kind of do any research on third party auditors for food, SQF is top of the line. It's hard to pass with a high score. I think it's 80 or above is passing. But, we are in the high 90s when they come.
Very cool.
And that's pretty unheard of with SQF. Most are happy to be in the 80s, but we're not only 90s, but high 90s. We feel really good about it. But again, that's kudos to our internal QA team. They're the nasty ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just having that gold seal standard is critical, to be able to develop that trust between your consumer base and your brand, because they know that, hey, this certification, I have no problem feeding this to my kids. And that's the reality of food, is, do I feel comfortable giving this to my child? And, having a standard like that, a gold seal right there on the label. Yeah, absolutely.
That's exactly right. In fact, that's what Steve Palmer, Jason Budge, that's exactly what they say. Am I okay feeding this to my kids?
Mm-hmm.
If so, yeah, let's do it. But if I'm like, oh, I don't know, you can feed it to their kids, but not my kids. That doesn't work. That's not
right.
That's not right.
Looking at the big picture, what current consumer trends are shaping the freeze-dried food market?
Yeah, good question. I think the number one right now, well, there are probably two. The number one is candy. You probably know that. Candy has just exploded, and everyone's doing freeze-dried candy right now, which is fun for sure. We're a little biased because we love to tout nutrition, because freeze-dried food is so nutritious if you do it right.
Yeah.
But candy is fun. So candy is exploding. The other one that has really taken off is pet food. 5 years ago, I don't even know there were a handful of people talking about freeze-dried food for pets, but today is just skyrocketed. Those are the two big ones for Thrive right now: candy and pet food.
Absolutely. We interviewed Sean Jones from Food Dynamics, and he hit the nail on the head. He goes, almost every one of us will go to a doctor, and the doctor will tell us to eat more raw fruits and vegetables, and cut down on this and cut down on that. But you go to a veterinarian, and for some reason they're telling you, well, your dog needs more kibble and this, and it's like, I'm sorry, but how can you, say that I need raw food, but that my dog needs processed food? And so, I think there's a turning point that has taken place, since COVID, honestly, where people are like, I want to provide my pets or animals with the best quality food. This is quality food that I would, consider a standard for myself. And man, the freeze-dried food market for pets has really stepped up to the plate to be able to answer the call for, that, I guess, nutritious whole food approach to animal, food. Yeah. So I mean, and I really see that market just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
We feel like the human food, the fruits, the vegetables, the proteins, that will continue to grow, no question.
Mhm.
But pet food will skyrocket here,
Absolutely.
likely in the next 2 or 3 years. We're watching that. We're developing. If we have customers watching this, then just get excited because we are working on some things for pet food that have
Very
not been
cool.
really
Very
excited
cool.
about.
Yeah, I've sold some small machines to people all over the world that are starting pet food businesses. They're not doing candy, they're not doing human food. Singapore, Germany, a couple of other places. So yeah, it's worldwide becoming a big thing.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting
Yep.
for freeze dryers, that's for sure.
Are there any particular demographic groups you've seen showing increased interest in freeze-dried foods?
Absolutely. In fact, you hit the pet. We already hit the pet market. Pet owners skyrocketing.
Mhm.
The other, and Michael, you mentioned this since COVID. Really, COVID did something crazy to us. I think in more ways than one. but
Yeah.
but one of those things is it opened our eyes to that need to have something on hand in
Mhm.
our home. I think all the preppers were like, "See, told
Yeah.
you." But the rest of the world, and especially you mentioned demographics, especially the younger demographic. I'm talking like 20 to 30 year olds or 30 to 40 year olds. I don't think this had ever crossed their minds to have food on hand, either for their family or pets. But COVID just opened up just like that. It was like, oh, I need food in my home, because at any point, whether it's a catastrophe and I can't get to the store, whether it's um, a pandemic and they won't let me go to the store, or the shelves are gone, whatever it is, I need food in my home. And so we've seen the pet market. We talked about that, but then just these younger moms and dads, moms especially, it seems to hit those females a little bit more when they have younger kids.
No.
But those younger moms are like, I need that in my home. And then the other difference between maybe this younger demographic that we've seen anyway, is that they aren't as strict, maybe, if that's the right word,
Mhm.
as some of us others, strict about using that food in emergency times. They'll buy it and they'll use it.
Mhm.
And they just want to have some in their home, but they're not afraid to use it today, even
Yeah.
though it's not an emergency. So that's kind of interesting too. A
Yeah.
little bit more of a use it and store it, not
Mhm.
just store it for that rainy day.
Oh yeah. Like freeze-dried fruits, raspberries or something like that. Popping open a can and putting some in your trail mix for a hike or something like that. I know a lot of people, younger people, that they love just the nutritional value and the texture and just how the flavor is, So they'll
Yeah.
buy freeze-dried food just for, daily use almost.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. We do. We have a lot of customers that have done that for 10, 15 years. But since COVID, we have a lot more customers using it on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah, with COVID too, I think I think it really put a limelight or a spotlight on just how fragile our food system really is. Yeah, and I
Sure.
think that everybody always has, like their prepper uncle that was always saying, "Oh, the end of the world's coming," and so, there was always like, "Yeah, okay, okay." But when COVID hit, it was like, holy cow, the food supply in America, especially, I mean, it's on a as needed basis, I mean, the supermarkets are continually stocking the shelves daily, with stuff from their distribution center, and all it takes is a slight hiccup in that supply chain, and you got empty shelves within a day or two. And I think COVID really put the spotlight on that and said, "Look, you can't trust the system." So you better trust yourself to be able to have a backup. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I mean, you're right. It's a slight hiccup. It's
Hmm.
not a huge catastrophe. It's a slight hiccup, and all of a sudden we have no access to
Yeah.
certain things. And so, yeah, we've noticed that the customers, not just those customers that feel like they have to have a bunker full of food or whatever that looks like, but we have customers that literally are stocking their pantry, not
Hmm.
not a bunker or not a basement, but a pantry
Hmm.
of just things that can last more than a couple weeks,
Yeah.
that can last a few years, or in our case, many years.
You anticipate more mainstream adoption of freeze-dried foods as a regular dietary option beyond just emergency storage?
In fact, we could say that we've built our business on that idea that if it doesn't go mainstream, we're probably in trouble
Hmm.
because we just feel, and it's not just COVID, but COVID definitely has maybe pushed that spike.
Hmm.
We just see more people are willing to think differently about the food supply, or how they prepare nutrition. It's a big deal. There are lots of trends that pop up, and some fall down. And nutrition is always kind of a trend for some people, but it is on the rise generally. And
Hmm.
there's no argument that freeze dry food, as long as it's done properly, is more nutritious than the processed foods that we generally get at supermarkets. And so I think, yeah, that we've built a business on the idea that people are moving to mainstream consumption
Hmm.
of, of freeze-dried foods. And will it happen overnight? For some it has happened overnight, but it'll take some time. This the mind is pretty set in its ways. So to have a shift in how we prepare food or consume food, it'll take a while. It
Yeah.
might even take a generation of people, but we're seeing that happen, certainly.
When it comes to innovation, what considerations go into creating new product offerings?
So for us, we have a huge benefit in our company because Thrive Life, you can certainly go on to thrivelife.com and order and get your product. But we're a direct sales company. So we call them consultants, but they're distributors that they go out and educate, teach on freeze dry, on food security, and they are the ones that are their customers, but they're also selling the product.
Hmm.
And so we have lots of access to these customers who are very loyal to freeze dry food, and they consume it every day. So they're telling us what they want, what they see, and what those trends might be. They're telling us what they would like in addition to this for my dinner. I sure wish I had this. So we're getting that feedback from our customer base, which is awesome. We do have an R&D team and a very innovative team. I have to say, I mean, I'm biased, but they're the best R&D team in the world. They're coming
Hmm.
up with ideas all the time. But that is true. We get to listen to our customers tell us what they're seeing in their consumption, in their presentations and education. It's been very beneficial for us.
Awesome. When you say consultants, are they more like affiliates out in the field, kind of doing direct sales, but also kind of education as well.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So they're out there, they're consumers, they love the brand, but they're pushing it, they're introducing it, they're educating on it, whether it's in small settings, maybe it's on social media, maybe it's at events,
Hmm.
but they do it on their own and they get commissions based on what they do.
Yeah.
They get commissions from us. So yeah. And we call them consultants. It's been
Oh,
awesome.
well, what are some of the most unique or creative ways you've seen customers use Thrive Life
Hmm.
freeze-dried ingredients before?
I think some of the most unique, you've probably heard of this before, but I just think this is so unique. They take some of our younger moms, our consumers that are younger moms, they'll
Mhm.
take these fruits and vegetables and even proteins, and they'll grind them up and they'll make baby food. They'll make little mixes of baby
Wow.
food,
Mhm.
and it's definitely more nutritious than the baby food that you can get on the shelves,
Mhm.
and way more convenient because you have it in powder form. You can, I mean, that'll last forever,
Yeah.
and you can take it on the run with you. These moms are just very innovative that way to. Oh, and you can do your own mix. Like
Hmm.
if my baby doesn't like banana, then she's not going to get banana. She's going to get strawberries, raspberries, and mangoes or or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's been awesome. Oh, the other thing actually is pet food. Even though it's human food, we have a handful of customers that mix up their own little thing. They know what their pet's like, or they'll sprinkle it over. They'll kind of crush it up and sprinkle it over because it's good protein for their dogs, or fruits and vegetables that
Yeah.
dogs don't normally get those types of nutrients.
How does Thrive Life contribute to community preparedness and broader education on food security?
I think when it comes to preparedness and food security, like we've been talking about with COVID, anything like COVID, our best approach to that is through our consultants, our affiliates, distributors. They are so good at just they're the ones in front of people, their networks or their
Hmm.
friend groups or on social media. They're really good at educating because they're living it. They live it, they understand. I mean, we have people, it's not just catastrophes, as you know, it's people that are out of a job for a few months.
Yeah.
Is people that something happened and their finances had to go over here for a time. And what do you do if you don't have food in home? Then how does that work? But if you have food in your home, then you can allocate those resources differently and still eat in the same way that you're eating today. They have these personal experiences. They talk to each other, and so they can get experience from each other. We're in the U.S. and Canada. These consultants live in the U.S. and Canada, and so we just have just a lot of experience that they can draw on as they talk to their networks.
Yeah.
That kind of reminded me of I always thought because I'm from Utah also, Tooele. And when I was younger, we actually we had a freezer go bad, and we lost an entire elk. That you spend all the money and you go hunting and all the extra funds and everything, and you're talking about $2,500 invested into going and getting this elk,
Oh,
and it was gone. So if we would have had this technology when I was younger,
yeah.
and preserving something like that, and we wouldn't have lost it.
You don't need a freezer to
That's
keep
Right.
that as long as you want. Yeah, that's disheartening, isn't it?
It's not like we went to the store and bought it. We worked for it.
Oh yeah. I did a an article that I wrote a while back, and it was on the elimination of the world's food waste, or the dilemma of the world's food waste problem and how it could be eliminated through freeze drying.
Uh,
And honestly, if there was a way that we could, you know, change the public perception of what fresh is, and allow freeze-dried foods into that, with if supermarkets honestly could take their fresh produce or even the produce that isn't good enough for the market, Yeah, and as it's starting to go bad on the shelves at the grocery store, instead of just tossing it, or donating it, if we found ways that we could take that and freeze dry it prior to spoilage, I mean, we could almost overnight maximize the effort that we have right now agriculturally. And, we could almost go from, the overproduction of agriculture where we have to account for the food loss.
Yeah.
If we got rid of that, I mean, just the amount of food that's produced in America alone would be enough for the whole world if we had the ability to stockpile freeze-dried food, as these ingredients start to go bad on the vine or on the shelf or, at the grocery store. I mean, overnight, it's amazing when you really get into the depth of just how much food is lost per year, fruits and vegetables alone, even meat that just, sits there, goes bad and gets tossed, Oh my goodness. And freeze drying technology could literally change the world if we could get the public perception of the technology to be, viewed as more of a lifesaver and not just this, corner of the market that, prior to COVID, only the preppers used. But since COVID, it's really starting to grow. And we see that trend with a lot of the industry. But man, if we could get that to really continue with the direction that it needs to go, like what you're saying with the younger generation, the younger millennials and stuff like that, that are, realizing, just how important having some extra food on the shelves or in the pantry or whatever, you know, man, it would completely change our whole system overnight. I really truly believe that.
It sure would. Which is one reason I love you're doing this podcast, just to help all of us understand what is this technology and is it strange or is it the next thing for
Yeah,
the US and for the world to embrace?
absolutely. Absolutely. Are there any partnerships or community initiatives that Thrive Life is actually involved in right now?
Yeah, one of the things that Steve and Jason, again, those co-founders, one of the things that they did from the very beginning is they wanted to give back to the community. So we've worked with third-party partners to help do that. But the thing that we are doing now, which we've kind of fallen in love with, it's this idea, we call it drop for drop. And the idea is that we're taking all this water out of product. We take so much water out of product between these 100 freeze dryers across the world. That's a lot of water.
Yeah.
And so we want to give that water back to the world in the form of potable water. There's just so many communities in the world that don't have clean water. And so we've partnered with a few different groups. The biggest group that we work with is Choice Humanitarian. They're based out of here in Utah, but they do work all over the world. We've been working a lot in Kenya, a couple of villages in Kenya that are they're beautiful people, and they're so awesome. We've given that whole community access to clean water. We've done this in Ecuador and Peru. We're going to Guatemala soon, and that's the point: is drop for drop. We take water out, but we're giving it back to the world, communities at a time, through having access to clean water.
Very cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've always had. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, I always had the thought of putting a carbon filter and then a UV filter on the drain and going, okay, now we're making drinking water right out of the machine.
I know we're kind of in that same mode too. How do we actually take the actual water that's coming out? We haven't done that yet, but at least we're saying, okay, this is how much water that we are taking out. How do we get that back to these communities? And it's not perfect yet, but it's perfect for those communities that we're reaching out to. It's been just heartwarming to see these awesome families.
I'm sure they really appreciate it,
and they work hard for it too. We that's one of the things we love about this is we don't just go over and make it happen. we partner with the community, with the families, and they're out helping dig and put piping together, all this stuff. They're actually doing it, and we're just kind of helping facilitate it. But it is so awesome. We love it.
And lastly, how important is customer education in your overall business strategy?
Honestly, Mykal, you were kind of talking about this idea that the world just needs to know. We need to know about this technology and the potential that it has for not just a few families. It actually has potential for the whole world. It could change the world in how we look at our food supply. So education is maybe it's number one in our business. Honestly, I can say that is why we chose to have the sales model that we do, this direct sales, instead of just going retail. Nothing against retail, obviously, but we chose direct sales because education was so important. We want people out there, and people trust each other. People trust neighbors. They don't necessarily trust big corporate America. But if my friend comes over and says, hey, there's this technology, look what it's doing for us, I'm going to listen. I need to get the word out. And so it's little by little. I understand that, but education is so important to us. And that's why we chose this model where it is kind of word of mouth. It's person to person. Because we trust each other more so than we trust either government or corporate America. These big names that we've lost faith in a lot of these people now. Yeah. So, but my neighbor and my friend and my coworker, people I still trust, and that's how we feel. That's why we feel like this model, although we can't get to the world immediately, at least we're getting to families. And we're growing from that standpoint.
Oh yeah. Well, and then, to touch on that too, my neighbor comes over to tell me about all this, great benefits to have a Thrive Life in hand. Usually they're bringing some with them to be like, try it, try it. It's really good. You don't get that on TV, or you don't get that out of a magazine article. Exactly. If your neighbor's like, seriously, these freeze-dried, ground beef or freeze-dried strawberries, let's make a taco, see what you think. I mean, just having, the ability to change the perception of freeze-dried food, is that, I get that all the time. Is that like the candy or something, and it's like, no, it's not like candy. It's just there's this lack of education about what it is. I think it's like this, like it's been altered or ultra processed, and it's like the furthest thing from processed, honestly, because it's just you're removing the water from the food and that's it. You're not adding anything to it. You're not adding trisodium phosphate to make it crunchier or something like that. It's literally you're just removing an element. And I mean, and when you put that element back in, to have fresh raspberries, or just putting a cup of freeze-dried ground beef in a skillet with some water and letting that boil together and reconstitute, and tasting it, it's fantastic. It tastes just like the day it was cooked. It's not like an MRE that you can kind of taste that's just been heavily pasteurized with salt and stuff like that, or preservatives. It's fantastic. It's wholesome. So I think that's the approach that Thrive Life is doing is it's spot on, because having the people in the field that believe in your product, talking about it, bringing some over to the people, to show them that hey, this is quality, this is the real deal. Make believers out of these people, and they're eventually going to be like, man, I'd like to sell some of the Thrive Life and educate some other people as well. So that's a fantastic opportunity to not only as a business model, but help the community or help the world understand the benefits of it.
And it has been working well for us. But you're right, Mykal, that the idea of freeze dry food is weird. That's the thing, right? Yeah. People think that, but as soon as you taste that pineapple or that sausage or whatever it is, it just dissipates. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that tastes like pineapple. Well, yeah,
Exactly.
it's pineapple. That's what you just ate. Yeah. And so if we can do that, even if it is a family at a time or a neighborhood at a time, maybe it's slow, but the ball keeps rolling, and this momentum can keep rolling, and we'll get there together. Everyone together, we'll get there.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing the incredible work you and your team are doing at Thrive Life. It's clear you're not only producing quality food, but also shaping the future of food preparedness and everyday cooking. Can you please let our listeners know where or how to find out more about Thrive Life, such as a website or social media?
Absolutely. This has been awesome. You guys are doing incredible work.
Thank you.
Just getting the word out that freeze dry, it can change the world. So we're excited to be a part of it. Yeah, our website is thrivelife.com, and it's super easy to go there and order online and kind of check us out. If you have questions, there's a little chat feature there as well. You can ask any questions, but we sure love what we do. We love freeze dry, and we love those stories that come in that when freeze dry saves a situation. We love hearing those stories.
Perfect. Does Thrive Life have any social media people can follow?
Yeah, we're on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is just Thrive Life LLC, and then Instagram is at Thrive Life. I think it's at Thrive Life LLC as well.
Perfect.
You'll find us there, and yeah, you can chat with us there as well. We'd love to hear from you.
For all our listeners out there, if today's conversation sparked your interest or inspired you to explore more about freeze drying, please check out Thrive Life and everything they offer. We'll post links in the show's notes.
And don't forget to follow the Freeze Dried Guys on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a review and share the episode with someone who's serious about food security and looking for premium freeze-dried options.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Freeze Dried Guys. I'm Colt Crisp, and we appreciate every one of you for being part of this growing freeze drying community. If today's episode gave you value, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podbean, and YouTube. And a big thank you to our sponsor, Upside Down Event Tents LLC. For custom branded event tents, Mylar bags, and premium package designed to make your products pop, head over to www.upsidedowntents.com. They offer free design, free shipping, and the kind of service every small business deserves. That's www.upsidedowntents.com. Check them out and tell them the Freeze Dried Guys sent you.